check it out. This is, of course, the Cannondale Jekyll. We've had this bike for a couple of months now. Blake's been riding it flat stick. This has to be one of the most insane bikes we've ever had here at the mag. I want it myself, it's that much. So I'm actually keen to hear what Blake reckons of it, how it's been faring. So we did the format for the GT where we put it out on our social media channels to get people to ask questions and be involved. Turns out that was really popular, you guys seem to love it, and so we're doing it again today. I've got a handful of questions that people have been sending us over the last few days since we put it up there that we're going to be doing this wrap-up video, and we thought we'd run through some. Does that sound like a plan?
Yeah, sounds good, let's whip in.
All right, first question. This one's coming in from Instagram, and I actually quite like this question. This would have to be the coolest effing MTB Cannondale has ever made. Please, can you tell me it rides even class as good as it looks?
So Cannondale have always been known for having some weird and wonderful ideas when it comes to frame design and construction, especially revolved around their suspension. This is no exception, the new Jekyll. It does ride as good as it looks, which is hard to believe considering, especially in this purple colorway. It just looks amazing. The frame construction is complete carbon fiber, so it's a very, very light bike. For 165mm travel, this is probably one of the more nimble and playful long travel bikes that I've ridden, even though it's got 29-inch wheels front and rear and I'm a bit of a shorter sort of guy. It just absolutely loves to play, get flicked around, roost in corners, getting sideways in the air and stuff like that.
Standard Blake things.
Just Blake things.
All right, next question. This one's coming in from Facebook. Compared to the GT that you recently reviewed, obviously high pivot, the bike that everyone saw, does the Jekyll's high pivot and idler make the bike pretty much ride the same as the GT, or are there some notable differences between the two?
So obviously the suspension designs are both very, very different. The suspension on this bike sort of feels a little bit more bottomless. It does have 5mm more travel, but towards the end of the stroke, you never really notice you're getting towards the bottom of that shock. The actual impact that the high pivot and the idler has is very, very similar. It doesn't grab you by the ears and say, hey look, we've got a high pivot, it's amazing. But it's more of a subtle difference where you notice at the bottom of a really, really rough section of trail, you go, hang on, that felt way smoother than it looked when I was coming into that section. So comparing it directly to the GT on the trail, the suspension on this bike does feel quite a lot more playful and poppy, whereas the GT was a bit more planted and just wanted to plow through sections, whereas the Cannondale likes to sit on top of things and skim over things a little bit more. So although very, very similar from the idle and the high pivot point of view, the actual way that it likes to ride through rougher sections of trail is pretty different, which is cool to see.
All right, so let me just expand on that a little bit more then. So the GT is really pitched at being a flat out enduro race bike. This thing you're saying, is it a bit more playful? Is it a bit more of a jack of all trades? Or is this thing just as ready to rip on an EWS track?
So naturally, because the bike is a little bit lighter than the GT as well, due to the full carbon frame construction, it does sort of lean towards being a little bit more of a jack of all trades. It does enjoy the climb up a little bit more than the GT, just being, again, lighter in construction. But the way that the actual suspension reacts under rougher sections is, it does have a different feel, but you're still going to get the same end result of being able to plow down the roughest of trails.
All right, next question from a reader. In the photos I've seen of this bike online, the carbon frame looks absolutely flawless. What's it like in the flesh, Blake?
Cannondale have sort of done a lot of other brands a little bit of an injustice in how high quality the finish on this paint job is. You wouldn't be surprised to see a different brand logo on there and it'd be a few grand extra on top of the price tag. The finish on it is absolutely second to none. Even around all the pivot points, the dropouts, all those types of very, very finite detailed areas, there's just not a skerrick of miss or oversprayed in the paint job. But it's not just the paint job, like even just the frame lines, the frame construction, everything just flows so well together. Even that link, the way that the link flows into the seat stay there, everything was obviously very, very well thought out during the design process.
All right, so that question segues nicely into the next one. This one's from Instagram and they ask, does putting the shock so low and deep in the frame make a notable difference to how the bike handles and rides out on the trail?
So because we've got such a large, massive weight low down in the bike, when we're going into lower corners where we're lowering the bike into the corner and stuff like that, we're not noticing as much of a topple over effect. Again, I'm a bit of a shorter guy, so I don't notice this as much, but for somebody taller like Scotty Prendo, one of our other review riders, he's a much taller guy, so he's got a lot more weight higher up, so he's going to notice even more of an effect from having a lot more mass down low in the bike.
So that's a performance benefit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, back to the questions. Now this is the last one, and interestingly, this is a question that quite a few of you out there had asked. Now it is this a bike you'd spend your own money on to buy it yourself?
This is actually a conversation JT and I have had a few times now, in that when this bike potentially goes missing after the review, which one of us is going to keep it? No, this is definitely a bike that I'd look at spending my own money on. Maybe the frame design with the submerged shock into the down tube might not be for everybody, but I'm been a pretty big die-hard fan of Cannondale from way back in the day when I first got into mountain biking. So to see them come out of the blocks and do something completely different is awesome to see. But it's not just awesome to see, it actually works really well too. So it's, yeah, really, really good effort by Cannondale.
So there you have it. One of the most exciting bikes on the market. Value for money, this thing is off the scale. We are definitely going to be seeing a lot of these Jackals getting out there this summer across Australia. Now, to read Blake's entire trail notes, be sure to grab yourself a copy of the upcoming edition of Revolution magazine.